Hello, friends. Welcome back to the While We're Waiting Hope After Child Loss podcast. I'm Jill Sullivan, your host and one of the co-founders of the While We're Waiting ministry. This is a podcast of stories of devastating loss and grief and heartbreak and struggle, and stories of hope and healing and faith and, yes, even joy. Underlying every conversation is the hope we have in Jesus Christ, which makes it possible to not just survive the loss of a child, but to live well while we're waiting to see them again in heaven one day. You can learn more about our ministry and the free bereaved parent retreats we host by visiting our website at www.whilewe'rewaiting.org. Welcome to episode number 281. My guest today is Meshea Ingram, a mom whose story reflects both the deep ache of loss and the steady hope we find in Jesus. Meshea shares about her little boy, Briggs, a joyful child with an unforgettable laugh and a big personality that filled every room. In the summer of 2022, Briggs drowned in a tragic incident and was on life support for 5 days before going to heaven. Meshea talks honestly about praying and believing for a miracle, wrestling with faith in the midst of heartbreak, and the purpose God has given her in the aftermath of loss through the Love Can Build a Briggs Foundation. This is a tender, faith-filled conversation about trusting God when life doesn't make sense. Let's listen in. Hi, Meshea. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Hey.
I've been looking forward to visiting with you. I feel like I know you because we've been Facebook friends for a long time, but we haven't ever had a chance to have a conversation. So I'll be kind of getting to know you along with our listeners today. Tell me where you're from and what life is like for you there.
I am from the West Georgia area. You might can hear it in my accent a little bit.
Sure.
My husband is as well. We are both from the West Georgia area. He is a fireman at a local department here, a full-time fireman. And I work as a content creator for a local author. And I also manage my personal social media as well as run a full-time charity. I'm also a stay-at-home mom. I homeschool our daughter, Allie. She's 11. She's in 6th grade this year. I've homeschooled her whole life. We live on 200 acres of family land.
Wow.
Yes, so we have chickens and dogs and cats, and hopefully cows and horses are in the future.
Wow. Yeah, you have a very busy life with all of that going on.
Yes, and we're also very involved in our church too. So we spend a lot of time with our church community.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Good for you. All right, so we're here today to talk about your son, Briggs. Before we get into his story, I would love to know if there is a story behind his name. That's kind of an unusual name, and I like it. I want to know where it came from.
Okay, so his name is actually Brigham, and we call him Briggs for short. But Allie played soccer when she was little, and we befriended another Briggs. Allie was very close to him, and his name was Brigham. He went by Briggs, and I was very close to his mom. And when we found out that we were pregnant with Briggs, we could not agree on a name, Josh and I. We just could not come up with a boy name. We had plenty of girl names for some reason. But Allie, she was 5. I had Briggs when she was 6. So she just randomly said, "How about Brigham?" And we call him Briggs. So I reached out to my friend and asked her, would that be okay if we name our little boy after your little boy? And of course they didn't mind. And
Sure.
That is where his first name came from. And then his middle name actually is Hurston, which is my maiden name.
Oh,
so his
okay.
name was Brigham Hurston Ingram, and everyone always said that he was going to be a lawyer because of his name.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. That is quite a handle for a little boy.
Yeah. Briggs by
Briggs,
itself really fit him, though.
Yes, I love that. Now, Briggs is not your first experience with loss. Is that right?
That is correct. A year before I had him, I actually had a miscarriage at 10 weeks. well, for starters, I was told I would never have children because I had endometriosis. So Allie was both a surprise and a miracle. And then we spent a lot of time trying for another child. Allie wanted a sibling and we wanted to give that to her, but
Sure.
um, we were finally able to be blessed with another child who we lost at 10 weeks pregnant. And then it, let me say that was not my first experience with loss, but that was certainly my first experience with such a personal loss. And at the
Hmm.
time, I mean, that was the worst pain I had ever been through in my life.
Sure.
Um, and then a year after that is actually when we found out that we were pregnant with our rainbow baby, Briggs.
Yeah. Now, did that add some stress to your pregnancy with him? Some fear?
It did. I was fearful of another miscarriage, um, or anything else that could possibly go wrong. And actually, when he was born, we did have some complications. He wasn't breathing, um, and with a lot of prayer, he started breathing what felt like an eternity later. And by the grace of God, he didn't have to spend any time in the NICU. But I mean, he was completely blue and not breathing. There wasn't the
Oh,
normal
wow.
baby cry. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was
It had to be
scary.
scary. Yes. Yes, absolutely. But he grew up to be a healthy little boy. Tell
Yes.
us about him. Help us to get to know his personality a little bit.
Well, Briggs was full of life and had a huge personality. Looking back now, I say God gave him such a big personality so that it would leave an impact on the world, and it certainly did. When people talk about Briggs, it's just you can tell that he lit up any room that he walked in, and he truly did. He was always smiling, and he had dimples up in his cheeks like I did when I was a kid. And he was mostly known for his laugh. He had the most infectious laugh you've ever heard, and it was, I mean, from infancy on, he just had this cackle I can't explain. You just have to hear it. But everyone remembers him by his laugh. And he
Wow.
was also so mischievous. he was, I called him sweet and sour, and his nickname from other people was Dennis the Menace. Not necessarily because he was a menace, but he was just so sweet and loving and honestly nurturing, and then would be so mischievous the very next second. For instance, as he got older, he did not want to hold my hand in the parking lot or anyone's hand in the parking lot. So he would stick his hands down in his pockets, his pant pockets.
Uh huh.
Anytime we'd go to reach for his hand, automatically he'd put them in his pockets and just walk like a
Sure.
little man. But he also loved all things firefighter, obviously, because
Mm,
Josh is
sure.
a fireman. He had a little puppy he called his wee woo puppy, and it's just a little Dalmatian with a fire helmet.
Uh huh.
And he loved tractors and toy guns, all the boy things. He loved Braves baseball. Surprisingly, at 2 years old, he would pay attention to a baseball game.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome.
He was all boy for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like just a really fun kid.
He truly was so much fun, so loving and endearing, and just, yes, he was a lot of fun.
What a treasure. So, talk about what happened on July 17th, 2022.
So on July 17th, 2022, we were at our family's lake house. We had been there for the weekend and we were packing up to go when Briggs found his way to the water. It, I don't, I still am completely unaware of how much time passed. It's just such a blur. I think the Lord has um, taken a lot of things from my memory to help protect me, but I noticed he was missing and we began frantically searching for him. And I had actually thought to look in the water, and so I did, but I didn't see him. So Josh made a second pass and looked and found him, and he was where I had already looked. So I know it was God just blocking that image from my mind. So that
Sure.
wasn't something I had to live with seeing. Um, Josh is strong. Sometimes men are much more emotionally strong, I think, than women. So I guess the Lord just knew he could handle that where I
Mm.
couldn't.
Yeah.
So Josh found Briggs in the water, pulled him out, and performed. He was unconscious, so he performed CPR for 30 minutes before Briggs regained a heartbeat in the back of the ambulance. After that, he was life flighted to UAB, Children's Hospital in Birmingham, where he remained on life support for 5 days before passing away on July 22nd.
Hmm. So I suppose your husband had some training for that as a firefighter. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. I mean, he had performed CPR countless times prior,
Sure.
obviously not on someone,
Mm.
so close, especially on a child.
Right, right. I know that had to be difficult for him. So during that time that he was on life support for 5 days, what were your conversations with God like?
Um, Obviously, I prayed for God to heal Briggs. I really couldn't fathom that God wouldn't heal
Mm.
Briggs because I couldn't fathom why God would take Briggs. I
Yeah,
just knew that he would heal Briggs and that Briggs would grow up with this amazing testimony that he would be able to share and souls would be won because of it. I just truly didn't believe that God wasn't going to heal him. I told the doctors, I exclaimed it quite boldly on social
sure.
media to anyone who listened, to the doctors. I said, y'all just wait, you're going to see a miracle, because I truly believed that they would. And he was on life support. So I just knew when they removed him from life support that that would be it. God would heal Briggs on earth. He would wake up and be with us. Um, but when God didn't heal him, obviously I was devastated. Any parent would be. But I remember one of the first prayers that I prayed after that was, God, don't let me go.
Mm.
And I knew God wouldn't let me go. So I think my heart was really saying, God, don't let me let you go.
Yeah,
Um, because I knew that my flesh could get the better of me and lead me down a really dark path. And I didn't want that to happen. I knew what my flesh was capable of.
sure.
So that was a prayer that I prayed. I mean, while we were in the hospital room, after Briggs had taken his last breath.
Hmm. Yeah. So at the time that we're recording this episode, it's been a little over 3 years since Briggs went to heaven. Is there any advice you might have for a listener who finds themselves in the very first early days or weeks after their loss?
I would say cling to God. Um,
Mm.
and everyone imagines that they would in that situation, but like I said, our flesh is capable of hurting us.
Hmm.
We wouldn't do it intentionally to ourselves, but absolutely our flesh can get the better of us. So I had to constantly remind myself of scripture and of the truth of God's word, of the truth of God's character. It was a constant inward battle between my shock and confusion and reminding myself of who God was. So, in a way, I had to, in my pain and confusion, sacrifice my flesh so that I wouldn't lose sight of God. So, that's what I would say. I would say, don't take your eyes off Jesus because your flesh will get the better of you.
Hmm. Especially in a situation like yours, I would think, where that shock and confusion has to be so prominent. What happened to Briggs was so sudden and so
Mm-hmm.
unexpected. And you had those 5 days when he was on life support. But even during that time, you really felt like he was going to come back to you. So I would think that shock and confusion would really make it difficult to trust God.
Oh, absolutely. It did, especially since I had prayed a prayer that he didn't answer. also, I had always clung to my faith. I was a Christian prior to losing Briggs, and I've always been very bold in my faith to the point when I would pray, God, and I constantly prayed this over my children from the time they came home from the hospital, because I always had a fear of losing them. I'm sure most parents do, but it would lead me to pray over them constantly. Lord, please don't anything happen to them. Protect them. And because I prayed that, I believed that he would. I mean, I didn't even believe that we would be in a car accident. That is
Yeah.
just how strong my faith was.
Mm-hmm.
So to say it was devastating that's just an understatement. I guess you could say I took it very personally
Mm.
because I had trusted God with my children, and then he not only let one of them pass away, but they passed away tragically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I really had to deal with within myself and with God, because it was hard to accept that he would allow such a thing to happen to one of my children. I almost took it like a punishment, and I couldn't understand why God would be punishing me in that way.
Sure. How did you work through that, or how are you working through that?
I had to accept the fact that God's ways are higher than our
Mm.
ways. My thoughts are not his thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to trust that he is sovereign and good and just. And these were all things I knew prior. And it's still things I knew. It was just hard for me to accept that truth
Mm-hmm.
because
Sure.
I was so devastatingly heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was hard to accept that God's character was good when I was in such pain. And the mind battles that I had due to Briggs drowning, that was unbelievably hard to work through. But it's only by the grace of God that I was able to get through that, even though, I was upset. One, I didn't blame God. And two, I knew God wasn't bad and he hadn't abandoned Briggs and he hadn't abandoned me. So I just constantly had to remind myself of the truth of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
God is good. God is sovereign. God is just. He loves me. He loved Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
His ways are just higher. He has a greater plan than I can imagine. So I just had to accept that God's plan was and is greater, and I can't and won't understand it this side of heaven. And I'm still working through trust in terms of, like, one of the biggest things I still battle is fear and losing Allie. And I will pray, but then I catch myself, oh, but will you really protect her, Lord? And so then I pray again and I'm like, Lord, help me to believe what I'm praying, believe that you're going to protect her because I'm asking you to. And I wasn't even planning on sharing this, but I will. I was so tortured in my mind by knowing that my baby boy had suffered. I dealt with such guilt and blame and just torment in my mind, thinking of him suffering. So one day in my prayer, I just was trying to rationalize it with God, and I was just like, surely you didn't let him suffer. Like, I know we would look as drowning as suffering, but surely you extended something to him and he didn't feel pain. And so while I was actually praying that prayer, God let me see Briggs in the water. And it was his back. Briggs wasn't facing me. He was facing a bright, glowing light in the water. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew what that was because anytime God is, his glory is referenced, it's a bright light. So I
Sure.
knew, Briggs was in the water, but he saw God with him. And God let me see that. And he is just so good for revealing that to me. He didn't have to, but it brought me such comfort knowing that Briggs wasn't scared because his eyes were on the Lord.
That's right.
And that's just another reminder, I don't have to fear either because I have the Lord by my side. I just have to keep my eyes on him.
What a great image that was that God gave you. I
Yes.
love that. And what a comfort that is. And then also a comfort to you going forward, just to, as a reminder to yourself to keep your eyes on him. And a
Yes.
reminder to all of us who are listening to you share this story, that when we keep our eyes on him, that's where the hope is. That's where the light is. That's where the glory is. Yeah. Thank you
Right.
for that. Yeah. I'm glad you shared that. So, as moms, we get asked the question all the time, how many children do you have?
Yeah.
Have you found a way to answer that you are comfortable with?
Well, I always say two,
Hmm.
because I don't want Briggs to be dismissed or forgotten. So I've just accepted that if I need to answer follow-up difficult questions after that, I will. So I always say two, and usually the next question is, well, how old are they?
Right. Hmm.
And I say, Allie is 11 and my son is forever 2. And that
Hmm.
usually lets them know right away that I have a child in heaven. And usually there's no follow up questions, but if there is, I just let them know. I'm just honest with them because I don't want his memory to die because I'm scared to talk about the hard things.
Right.
So I'll just answer, any question as honestly as I can. And it you can tell sometimes it makes people uncomfortable.
Right.
Um, but it needs to be talked about.
That's right. And it gives you the opportunity, if that makes them uncomfortable and they just kind of move on, that's fine. But it may
Yes.
also give you the opportunity to talk about him and share some things that are special about him, and talk about your organization and those kinds of things. So it can open up a good conversation. Just some days that your heart is just not prepared to answer that question.
Yes. Yes. Especially when they want to get into all the finite details.
Sure.
I'm like, I don't obviously want to get into all the details, but I feel like there's not really been a situation where the Lord didn't help me through it.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So Briggs's birthday falls the day after Christmas, and I imagine that makes the holidays rather complicated at your house. How have you dealt with the holiday season since Briggs went to heaven?
Well, like you said, his birthday is December 26th. So that absolutely makes Christmas difficult. And what I have actually found to be the most difficult is managing my feelings while also still making Christmas magical for Allie.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, she's still a young child, so I don't want to take any part of what Christmas is supposed to be away from her. So, trying to manage my feelings, navigate that while also making it a special time for Allie. It has been a challenge. And I've actually found that Briggs' birthday is much harder to face than his heaven date. It's just it just leads to the questions of what would have been and what should be. And like last year specifically, Briggs would have turned 5. And that was actually a milestone I did not want to face because it means that he was now in heaven longer than we got to have him on earth. And I remember in the early days praying, Lord, don't let me face that day. I can't handle it. And it was hard to face, but obviously the Lord helped me through it. But the first 2 years, we went out of town for Christmas with family. So we went on vacation. Family, some friends came with us. And the first year, though it was difficult, obviously, it still felt kind of magical. My nieces and nephews were there. Obviously, Allie was there, her grandparents, and it snowed on Briggs' birthday. We just knew that was like a God wink
Sure.
because we don't see snow really in our part of Georgia. So we were in the
Right.
mountains for that. And it was a really special time. And then on his birthday, we released lanterns. And that was really magical to just do and see. That was beautiful. And then the next year we went out of town and it didn't quite seem as magical. Something was missing. And then last year we chose to stay home and we hosted family. And that last year was definitely our most, or for me, my most difficult Christmas and birthday to face. We still don't know what this year's plan is.
Right. Yeah. You just kind of have to figure it out as you go along, don't you?
Yes.
Hmm. What might work for your family, in a previous year may not work next year. So, yeah.
Right.
Hmm. I believe all of us that have lost a child have this very sharp dividing line in our lives. I'm almost like a fault line of the before and the after. So talk about the before Meshea and the after Meshea. How is she different?
Well, this is actually something that I've just recently kind of come to terms with. I've accepted that my life will never look or feel the same way it did before we lost Briggs. In fact, I actually often ask Josh if we can just move away and start a new life altogether.
Yes. Sure, I understand that.
He's not really for that.
Right.
Um, but I did reach a point this year actually where I realized that I had to let go of some things and allow God to return to me the joy of my salvation. And I say the joy of my salvation specifically because worldly joy is a different kind of joy than the joy of the Lord. And I think because I've spent 3 straight years in nothing but survival mode, that I had lost both myself and my joy, a joy that only the Lord can give. So I began praying for whatever the after was supposed to look like. And God is definitely still helping me to navigate what that is, and what it's supposed to look like. But the after has certainly redefined both who I am as a person and my life and the value that it holds. I've always been a compassionate person, and I've always been very in tune with how short life really is. In fact, just a few days before Briggs passed away, I can't remember if it was, I can't remember exactly, but it was a few days before Briggs passed away. I had actually made a few posts, and you could tell that the Lord was, in a way, preparing my heart for what was coming by helping me relish the moment. Um,
Yes.
I had posted that I was taking time off social media to focus on my kids, and to
Wow.
just live in the moment with them. I had posted that, people often say time is such a thief, and I had shared a post that time wasn't a thief, it was actually a gift. It
Mm.
was a gift for us to appreciate and bask in.
Yes.
And then just a few short days later, we lost Briggs, but it's made me even more in tune, obviously, with how short life is. Like, I look at things I would have been aggravated about prior that I'm not so I don't get so aggravated about now. And I can say that I don't have a lot of regrets. I feel like I was always very an attentive mother, and I appreciated my children, and thank the Lord I was able to be a stay-at-home mom with both of them. So I got to be part of Briggs every moment of his life.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so I have those memories, and I'm so thankful for that. But I think that helps me now help other moms to see, the dishes can wait, or it's okay if they have an accident. That's just part of being a 2-year-old. Don't fret over the small things. Um, the dishes can wait, and you take that time to spend with your child. Kiss
Right.
the boo-boos, rock them to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I definitely try to use our testimony now for the betterment, I guess you could say, of other families, and especially for God's glory.
Yes, I love that. Any reminders like that we need to value and treasure every moment that we have with our children are so important because our time with them is limited. Whether they go to heaven, what we would consider early or not, we only have about 18 years with them before they take off. So,
Yes,
yeah, we need to enjoy every moment and savor it, every moment that we have with them.
yes.
You've learned a lot about drowning since Briggs went to heaven. And we have met through the While We're Waiting ministry, we have had a lot of parents come to our retreats that have lost children due to drowning. And I know it's more common than most people realize. How common actually is it?
So, drowning is actually the leading cause of death in children ages 1 to 4, and the second leading cause of death in children ages 5 to 15.
Wow. That's more than I would have thought. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I didn't even know these statistics prior to losing Briggs. Obviously, I was aware of drowning and that drowning could happen. I just didn't realize that it was so common amongst young children. I hadn't been made aware of those statistics, and I wish I would have. For instance, like with Allie, I didn't have her in swimming lessons until she was older, like she was 5 or 6 years old, because I just never thought there would be a situation where she would be in the water without me before that. So I didn't think she needed to be an independent swimmer at an early age. Maybe that was just me being naive. I don't know, but obviously it's a common assumption, or drowning wouldn't be the leading cause of death in young children. So that's why Briggs had not received swimming lessons. I just truly didn't
Sure.
think he was old enough.
Right. Right. Oh, I wouldn't have thought so either. So you have founded a nonprofit organization to educate people about the dangers of drowning and
Yes.
hopefully prevent tragedies from happening. Talk about your organization. I love the name of it. So tell us the name and talk about what your organization does.
Okay, the name is Love Can Build a Briggs, and it was actually a friend of ours had a dream while we were in the hospital with Briggs, actually, that we would start a charity, not necessarily in the event that Briggs passed. She didn't think that. She just thought we would use the situation and start a drowning awareness tragedy called Love Can Build a Briggs, and it's a play on the song Love Can Build a Bridge.
Hmm.
So, a few months after Briggs passed away, I could tell I needed a mission. So, we started Love Can Build a Briggs, and it is a drowning awareness nonprofit. And I try to educate other families on both the statistics of drowning and proper water safety. And we also provide scholarships for swim lessons for children ages 6 months to 6 years. And it's actually specifically for what is known as ISR swim. It's a specific kind of training for young children, and it teaches them actually to self-rescue should they find themselves in the water alone. And like I said, no parent would ever think that they would need those kind of skills. I never would have thought either one of my children would be in the water without me. But clearly it happens. So ISAR was created so that in, God forbid, the event a child finds themselves in the water alone, they can rescue themselves. So and it's kind of expensive. It's definitely an investment. So we provide scholarships for those lessons.
Wow, what a valuable skill. I would never have thought that a child could learn to do that.
Me either. I had not even heard of ISR prior to Briggs' accident.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you guys did a fundraiser recently for Love Can Build
Yes.
a Briggs. Talk about what you did.
So the Saturday closest to Briggs Heaven Day, we host what is called Briggs Day, and it's a community event where we raise funds for the charity so that we can continue providing the scholarships and things. And it's just a family fun day. We have bounce houses, food trucks, vendors, a petting zoo, face painting. It's all tailored for children, and it's free for them to come and participate. And then we also, during the event, host a memory walk, and it's to honor other children as well, not just Briggs, who have since run ahead of us to heaven. So that's an opportunity for other families to come together and honor their child as well.
Yeah, I love that. I have friends that came to that this year, the friends that we've met through while we're waiting, and they talked about what a great event it was. So,
Yes,
y'all
they
are doing
actually
good work.
surprised us. It was
Yes.
so nice to see them.
Yes, that's such a treat when somebody does that. So, and I think your organization is so important. Like I said, we have had many, many parents who have come to While We're Waiting events because they have lost their children through drowning. Somebody called my husband just last night to let him know about a little child in our community, a 3-year-old boy that just drowned. So it's so important. It's so important. And I'm excited that, that God is bringing some good things from Briggs going to heaven, that maybe some little ones will be saved.
Yes, and that is what my prayer has been, that God would get the ultimate glory through Briggs' accident, but also, reach the community and help spread awareness in a way that I wish had been spread to me. I fully believe, had I known the statistics and the availability of ISR lessons, that Briggs would still be with us. So I've kind of made it my life's mission to spread awareness in this way, because it is so common. It wasn't just, it's not some freak accident that may never happen again, unfortunately. And I would never wish this kind of pain on another family. So if I can be a small part in preventing this kind of pain for them, then Lord, please use me to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, kind of shifting gears here a little bit, we've talked a little bit about God's character early, but what specifically have you learned about God's character as you've been walking out your grief journey?
Well, like I said, I questioned whether I was being punished or not.
Yeah.
And I questioned God's reach, like as in, does he ever choose to intervene or not? And what makes him choose? But ultimately, I had to remind myself, and I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I had to remind myself that he is both sovereign and just. And I had to remember that God had never failed me prior, and he didn't fail me by taking Briggs. It was just part of a grander plan. Briggs' death was part of a grander plan, and that didn't make God bad. It just means that he's sovereign, and my human mind cannot fathom that. Like I said, our thoughts are not his thoughts, our ways are not his ways. So I had to quit trying to rationalize the why and accept God for who I knew he was in my heart. Like I said, there was a lot of torment in my mind, and I could have gone down a very dark path because of that. But God just, like I said, I prayed constantly, Lord, please don't let me go. And he didn't. He was constantly there to remind me of just who he was and is, and would just show me constantly through people his hand in my life and in our story. And truly, I couldn't help but see his goodness, even in the confusion and the pain. His goodness was just revealed constantly. So, and that goes back to me saying, you have to keep your eyes on Jesus. You have to just sacrifice your flesh, put your feelings aside, and remember that God is good. And when we can keep our eyes on him, he can help us battle the pain. And that's it. That's exactly what he did. He helped me battle the pain. He helped me through countless nights of just torment in my mind, and just constantly revealed his love for me. And like I said, I had a prior relationship with the Lord, but I feel like Briggs' accident and enduring such loss and living through such pain, it deepened my relationship with the Lord. And something my dad used to tell me when I was little was, talk to God like he's your best friend, because he will be your best friend. And that has proven true in all of my life, but especially in this particular situation. God has been my nearest and dearest friend. When I couldn't express myself to anyone else, when no one else could understand my pain, I could talk to God, and I literally talked to him like he is my best friend. And that helped me work through a lot of my emotions, a lot of my questions. And it's not, because he was like audibly speaking back to me. His presence was just there. He was truly near to my broken heart.
It's such a beautiful picture of who God is. And I love the idea of talking to him like a best friend. And best friends, sometimes there's a little tension between them. You could say anything to your best friend, knowing that they won't judge you, that they won't turn away from you. And
Right.
so,
And I
yeah,
was completely honest with God
sure.
about my feelings too.
Yeah.
And I think I needed to be to work through some things. I think that's important. You can be honest with God.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. Are there any particular scriptures that have been especially comforting to you since Briggs went to heaven?
There have been a few actually. Kind of each one has served a different purpose in different seasons. But in the beginning, I was in such agony, not only because I lost Briggs, but because of his accident in particular. So I dealt with a lot of blame and guilt, and the thought of him suffering, it truly tormented my mind to the point I couldn't sleep at night. So at night, when it was its worst, I would recite parts of Psalm 23 to go to sleep. And I even found comfort in several songs that were derived from that whole chapter. So I would recite that to go to sleep as a reminder that God, He was my shepherd and He was there with me in that moment and He would help me go to sleep. And He did. He would help me go to sleep. And then secondly was Lamentations 3:21 through 23. And those verses kind of became my life's anthem, you could say. I do want to read those if that's okay.
Yes,
This
please.
I rec- okay. This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. These verses gave me hope for tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Just reminded me that God's mercies were new every day and He wouldn't abandon me in my pain, and He didn't. And then just recently, it's been Psalms 51:10 through 12, which I kind of referenced earlier. Restore to me the joy of my salvation. And I've actually prayed those verses because joy had been sucked out of me. I didn't know how to find it again in the world or in Christ. And it felt like I was maybe it felt like maybe I was clinging to Him out of desperation. And I wanted, and I'm still trying to find joy in serving Him. Not just because I have to survive, but because I want to, because it fills my cup and brings me gladness. And I had to first admit that that was lacking from my life. And when I read these verses, actually, for the first time since Briggs' passing, it was like they were both convicting and inspiring. And it's helped me to think, it's helped me, I think, to really let go of some things and start kind of a new chapter in my journey of grief and loss.
hmm Very good. Yeah, those are great scriptures. Those are all some of my favorites too. So helpful. All right. So, finally, a question I like to ask in closing. Has music been an important part of your grief journey? And if so, what is on your playlist?
Music has been an important part of my grief journey, but it's kind of always had an important role in my life. I am very emotional, and music has a way of affecting my emotions, actually. So I realized as a young adult, I had to be very careful what kind of music I listen to. So at some point in my younger adult life, I chose to start listening to Christian music alone because of the way it affected my mind and my heart, even. So I've always loved Christian music, and now I have a wide genre of Christian music that I listen
Uh
to.
huh. Yeah, I do too.
Um, but I said this earlier, some different songs that have been derived from Psalm 23, some are even called Psalm 23. Those have helped me a lot. They've brought me a ton of comfort, and they just keep scripture on my mind. And especially when I'm having a hard time, I like to listen to music specifically that recalls scripture to my mind. It's just very comforting, and it puts my heart more in a place of worship than, feeding into my pain. So it just kind of points me back to the Lord. It helps me keep my eyes on Him. So my playlist is full of Christian music, and it's anywhere from worship to fun music to listen to with Allie, but it all glorifies God, and that's just what feeds my soul. So that is what I listen to, and I loved it prior, but especially even now. I mean, I even have it playing in my home. It can get lonely in the
Sure.
quietness of your house. So even
Yeah.
having my worship music going in my house, it just lifts my spirit.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you're online, you're on social media. How can people find you, get connected with you, learn more about Love Can Build a Briggs? Give us some of your connections, and I'll put those in the show notes for people.
Okay. My Instagram is She Who Prays. It was that
Hmm.
prior to losing Briggs, but
Okay.
I share my entire grief journey there. And everything is shared from my Instagram to my Facebook. Now, my Facebook is under my name, Meshea Ingram. And we also have a charity account, Love Can Build a Briggs, on both Instagram and Facebook. But we also have a website, and it's www.lovecanbuildabriggs.com. And it has my blog, which I have not updated lately. And then all of our charity information is on there, as well as the application to apply for our swim scholarship.
Oh, good. Good. All right. I'll put all those links in the show notes then so people can have them and get connected with you. Check out your social media accounts. That'll be good. All right. We're about to wrap up. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
Um, I guess if I could say one thing in closing, it would be to cling to God and not try to make sense of it all. We will not have the answers this side of heaven, so we just have to trust the Lord and His plan, and both allow Him and help Him bring beauty from ashes. Let Him use your story for God's glory.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Beautiful way to close. Thank you so much, Meshea.
Thank you.
What a wonderful conversation with Meshea Ingram. I'm grateful for her willingness to share so openly about her precious son, Briggs, and the ways God has sustained her through unthinkable loss. If you'd like to connect with Meshea or learn more about her organization, Love Can Build a Briggs, you'll find links to her website and social media in the show notes. Her mission to raise awareness about drowning prevention and provide swim scholarships for young children is such a beautiful way to honor Briggs's life. As Meshea reminded us, even when our prayers seem unanswered and our hearts are shattered, God's goodness doesn't change. His mercies are new every morning, and He is faithful to meet us in our pain. If this episode encouraged you, I hope you'll share it with another grieving parent who might need to hear Meshea's story. And as always, thank you for joining me for the While We're Waiting podcast, where we trust God together in the midst of our sorrow and look forward with hope to the day we're reunited with our children in heaven.